Thank you for joining me at the Heather Ewing, the Commercial Real Estate Rundown. Today, I have none other than Pete Mueller with me. He is the owner of Pete Mueller Performance Group in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Pete, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Definitely. So I'm excited to have you on today to talk about, the beautiful realm of fitness, something that is obviously very near and dear to your heart and an arena that I also really enjoy as well. So there's going to be a series of a few different questions, but what I wanted to start with is if you can enlighten our guests a little bit more about who you are and also about your performance group.
Sure, thanks. So we've been serving the greater Milwaukee community for over 30 years. Primarily, we work with leaders, C-suite, entrepreneurs, founders, people that have influence in Milwaukee with the goal of serving in a very holistic fashion. We're strength coaches. That's what we do. And then we also do some body work called activation, which resets your breathing and movement patterns. But we're more than that. We view working with the whole corporate athlete or the whole athlete, because as human beings, we are bio, psycho, social, and spiritual beings. And in order to function and be at the top of your game in business, with relationships, in life in general, and to really contribute and engage in this world, you need to be hitting on all four of those cylinders as well as possible. So we engage people in a very holistic fashion as strength coaches.
That's wonderful. And I couldn't agree with you more. As you know, I've been a diligent runner, if you want to say, for several years. But where would you say most, like when people come to you, are there a common couple or three things that are typical, or do they even really connect the importance of fitness with career, right? Or some of these different facets, such as relationships. Do they have that connection typically when they come in, or is that something they learn in strengthening their bodies that their minds too are strengthening, and how it really ripples out in their life?
Yeah, I think it both. We have people coming in with some with an understanding that they need this in order to shift their psychology and their physiology are intimately connected. And some people really get that connection. They just don't know how to get started. And then we have others that will come in with some version of, I want to look my best and I want to feel my best. Like everybody's got kind of the same goal. It's just the definition of looking your best and feeling your best is different. But then as they start to engage with us and we start to coach them and move them through the process, they pretty quickly understand that their physiology is going to have a huge impact on their energy, their focus, their creativity in the workplace.
Definitely. And, you hear from people all the time, I'm certain, right? Of, I don't have time. What are a couple of tips or tricks, or what are maybe a couple of ways that you're able to help people maybe, one, see it differently, or two, take action in a different way?
The old adage of somebody's got to hit their bottom before they're going to make a change. I mean, pain is the big motivator for most people. It usually isn't the seeking of pleasure, but it's some sort of a pain point in their life that they hit. Everybody has the time. Put your phone down, quit scrolling, prioritize it. That is so trite, because I'm sure that's been said a lot. But I can tell you in over 3 decades of working with people that produce a lot of value and add a lot of value, not only to Milwaukee, but, internationally, they make the time, they prioritize it. And believe me, nobody's getting fired or getting demoted because they started strength training and working out on a regular basis. In fact,
they're probably getting hired or promoted, I should say.
Exactly. Definitely. So I don't know if that's the answer that you're looking for, but It's really just a matter of prioritizing you, because when you take care of yourself and you are selfish about your own care, it spreads out to a partner, to kids, to a work environment. You've got to put your own oxygen mask on first in order to be there for the rest of your friends and family and coworkers.
I agree completely. And it's like, from my background, I don't have children, but I do really see it, since I'm an entrepreneur, that I am my most important investment, because if I'm not taking care of myself mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, relationally, family and others, that I'm not going to be able to support the business and continue that on and serve all the customers and clients as well. So I agree with you completely. And I think as far as timing, it's creating a plan, right? Just like you create a strength plan, you have to understand where you're at and then develop the plan to get them where they want to go. What are some ways, because this is such a parallel again to our careers, when they are finding those stumbling blocks, or maybe it's a physical thing, or maybe it's a mental block, right? What is a technique that you'd like to go to? And again, everyone's wired differently, so they're going to have different motivations. But what is something to help people take that next step forward or get unstuck?
Yeah, I think that's a challenging question to answer.
Throw in the tough ones early on, Pete.
Yeah, exactly. When you've got to break a pattern. There's got to be, maybe sometimes it's just being still enough for long enough where you're not paying attention to all the bright, shiny objects that you've got to take care of out there, but you're actually sitting still and you look at your life, take a deep dive and look at, where am I right now? Am I really satisfied with my relationships, with my business, with my career, with my fitness, with my health? And then and just take an inventory of where you're at right now. Then extrapolate that inventory and magnify it over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Are you really going to love your health and wellness, physically, emotionally, all those things, if you stay doing the same thing? And if the answer is no, then you just need to change a pattern and quit doing the same thing you've always done. Change one thing and just shake it up. Do something different.
Yeah, definitely. I agree completely. And as you mentioned that, it made me think of, I had gotten to a comfort zone of racing half marathons. So I had raced in 6 years or 4 years, 6 per season. So April through November, and I'd race one a month and got pretty comfortable with that. And it had been almost 20 years prior that I had ran a full marathon. So that's how I got back into, per se, the marathoning, was I was just like, you're too comfortable. But to your point, it's not easy. And then I think everyone, especially if you've been in sports for a while, have had different injuries and you worry about this one or that one. And that's why I think strengthening is so important. But it took a while, but that's also when, after running the New York Marathon, that I really started thinking about making changes in my career. And it's scary, right? When you look over the cliff, but to your point of fast forwarding, of how do you feel and are you going to be where you want to be? And if not, you have to start creating a plan and making a choice. So tying into that, I know you just ran a big one, the Ice Age 50, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what pearls do you have us from that one?
Another great question. I guess I was back in the middle of January of this year. We have a lot of things going on in the business, and I didn't realize it at the time. My wife, who is quite brilliant, reminded me after the fact. She's like, yeah, you were kind of stuck. I was just doing and not quite I knew at that point that I needed something to kind of shock my system, to change the paradigm, to change the record, to add some creativity, and to re-engage. And I had run this particular 50-kilometer race probably 9 times before. So I thought, it's a stretch goal because I hadn't run it. At the time, I thought, well, I haven't run that race for 10 years. It turns out it's been 17 years. I lost track of time. So I thought, I can do this 50K. It's a stretch. It's familiar. It's local. I love the course. I love the people. It's beautiful. And that'll be a really good challenge. So I started running and training, and the nuggets I got out of it, like one thing it was profound for me. So, but I'll share it. I don't know if it'll be profound for anybody else, but
I'm sure it will.
I was kind of slogging through the race, and I was coming to the end of it, and I had probably 4.5 miles to go. And I had probably hit a pretty decent wall, maybe at about the 25, 26 mile mark. And I was doing the ultra marathon shuffle. I mean, I was not running anymore. I was just doing that shuffle. And what came to my mind was, I can do this. But it wasn't, I can finish. I can do this. It was, I can do this. Like what I'm currently doing right now, which is the marathon shuffle. I can do this. I don't need to be anywhere else in the future or in the past. I need to be very present, and I can do this. So I think as we're going through life, you're building a business, you're working on a project, you've got deadlines, be present. I can do this. Like, I don't need to worry about all the deadlines that I have coming up, but today is a day and I can do this. So
I love that. And I think that is a huge awareness. And I think that's why so many people do get into sports when they do, or for me with the marathons now too, because it's funny, people have said, what are you running from? Kind of like runners are all running from something. And, the interesting part is I always say, well, I'm actually running to myself, because I have found over the years that, and this is why I think a lot of people don't like distance running, is that it forces you to be in the present. You're moving, but you're not moving that fast. Like, with bicycling or something where the cycle races, I mean, they are clipping along and one little move and you're out, whereas don't quite have that pace for running. And it's really illuminating. And also, I think one of the other big takeaways for me in these various races is 2 things. One is that it helps me to realize all the stupid stories that I've told myself of, like, you can't do this and this and this, right? Which we're all afflicted with, right? And I'm like, it's the beauty of being human. But it becomes very aware for me. And then it's a choice to start having a better dialogue, right? And then I would say also the second thing is to also really be able to break something down. And I'm a month in on training for the Chicago Marathon. And it always reminds me of the simplicity of a plan. You sometimes deviate things, things come up or whatever it might be. But in the end, you always finish it. And so to me, again, that plays so beautifully with life, relationships, career, anything. And I think it's that power of consistency, where I'm sure you've heard it too. It's easy for you. It's like, it's the consistency that you do your strength training, or me, my running, that does make it look easy. But people can rinse and repeat that with anything. And that's what I love, is the simplicity, but you got to show up.
Yeah, when you have an event, and, a Chicago Marathon or this Ice Age 50K that I just ran,
right?
It's just an event. And then you build, kind of back to your question of how do you fit exercise, you build your default calendar. And you make some non-negotiables in there, understanding that you're going to do your best with that default calendar and fulfill the tasks that you put in there, or the opportunities you put in there, and then be flexible with it. But you've got a default calendar. You prioritize if you put it in your calendar, you will get it done most of the time. And if you can hit it 90% of the time, you're crushing it.
Yep. Yep. And you probably see this all the time. And again, I'm just on the outskirts of it, but it seems like people want to be perfect, or they want to start at an elite level when they're just starting. And I think it's the discomfort of learning, of trying, that a lot of people just avoid.
Yeah. With anything, you have to earn the right to be at that elite level. It shifted a little bit, but take the CrossFit phenomenon that kind of popped up. I lose track of the time there too, but it became very popular in the early 2000s, certainly in probably the 1990s. Part of the intrigue was the intensity of the effort, right? And it's like high level elite energy system requirements to do that. And what you also saw as part of that was a lot of injuries popping up. I'm not blaming CrossFit, to be clear. I'm a fan. Like it's a fine form of exercise if that's what you're into. But people didn't, what they were yearning for was, and I'll pick on men. It's that 40-year-old guy that is back in the glory days of high school, and he forgot that it's been 20 years since he trained at that level. You can get to that level. Age does not inhibit it, but you've got to be smart, and you've got to be deliberate, and you have to have a plan, and you can get there, but you got to earn that right. Earn the intensity. You can't just go out, I'm going to start training, and you put your shoes on and you go run 5 or 6 miles, and you haven't run for decades.
Right.
It'd be so like, you can get it done. Awesome. Good for you. But man, you're going to be sore the next day. Go out and jog, walk 2 or 3 miles and build it up. Have a plan.
Yeah. Plans win time and time again. I agree completely. So now I'm going to jump back a little bit. So if you were to jump into a time machine, right, and you go back 10, 20 years, what is a piece of advice you would give yourself? And how have you seen, how would you see that play out?
I think I have a record that is little by little being broken, but that imposter syndrome is a real thing. I think if I could go back and talk to, did you say 10 years ago or 20 or how old?
10, 20. Yeah, whichever one.
Yeah, whichever one. I would believe more in myself and my abilities and my intent to kindly and intelligently help people find their more, because that is what drives me. I mean, I believe there is more in all of us. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of encouragement and courage for a coach or a coworker or a partner or somebody to see that incredible goal that is in everybody and call it up. And I think I would do that more with myself earlier. And how would that play out?
Yeah.
I don't know if it
was a real brain teaser. That's why I was like, all right, hold on.
I think how I would answer that is it would play out by Pete Miller Performance Group being in a position where we would be helping even more people. There would be an even larger audience. And we'd be helping people find their more. And we help a lot of people. We've been doing this for decades,
definitely.
But there would be even more. And I would take more.
Well, and the beautiful thing, if you think about it, it is rippling through, because I know you're looking to bring on more trainers, right? And I also, one of the things I loved, because I think we connected a few years back on LinkedIn, is you've always had great video testimonials. And to me, it's so nice because you can see the impact that you and your trainers have had on people. And, to me, there's nothing that speaks higher, right, than the video testimonials, understanding where they were at when they started with you, where they're at now, how it's impacted their life and really up-leveled them. So that's a masterpiece, I'd say, of the finest level. So kudos to you on that. And I'm excited for your continued growth. What would you say, for people that might be interested in training with you? What's the best way to connect with you? What is something maybe that would be helpful for them to know or do ahead of time? How do they work with you?
Well, if they're in the Metro Milwaukee area, we're conveniently located right by the Fiserv Forum. So we're right on 6th and McKinley in Milwaukee, easy to get to, parking is attached. Interestingly enough, we do remote coaching. We primarily do in-person coaching, but I'm working with an individual in San Francisco right now that found us, liked the story, and on our Instagram and whatever social media stuff we're doing. So we do remote coaching. We can send programming to people. It comes on your phone. It's got video, performance points, sets, reps. You get our expert instruction remotely. And then you also, one of the keys to our coaching, besides expert instruction, is accountability. We're going to connect on a weekly basis and make sure you're moving in the right direction. So if they want to work with us, they can go to our website, which is PeteMuellerGroup.com. We're in Wisconsin, so we pronounce it Miller, but of course it's Pete, Mueller Group.com. Information on there. We do activations, which is some body work that basically resets your breathing and movement patterns back to optimal factory settings. And those we can do, those stand alone. We do them with our clients, but it's a way to reset your body, and it's really quite powerful. And so people can come in.
That's interesting. Sorry to jump in. It's like that just caught my attention. So does that help people? Like you hear so frequently, right? With everyone's schedules, this, that, and the other thing, you hear about burnout, and then you also hear about the flight, fight, or freeze, right? Is that a reset for that, or is it a different type, or does it lead into it?
Yeah, I mean, our human bodies are so miraculously designed, and they're designed not only for longevity and health span that is beautiful, they're designed to heal themselves. And our bodies are so brilliant that if through an activation session with me or one of our coaches, we ask the body a series of questions, usually with my thumb, different spots in the body. Right. And when we ask the body the right questions, it gives us brilliant answers. And the mind and the body are intimately connected, right? There's more nerve input from our heart rising up to our mind than the other way around. So the human beings have two priorities. We need to move and we need to breathe. And we'll sacrifice anything to keep moving and breathing. Because of the age we're in, you were talking about fight, flight, freeze.
Right.
The digital age, I mean, I can't even comprehend commercial real estate or residential real estate. And if you don't put up great boundaries, you can be on 20 hours a day, maybe 22 hours a day. Your clients want you, right? And so all of that access can get us into this sympathetic drive or this fight, flight, freeze. And we don't even realize that we're there. We're just stuck in this constant frenetic pace, always looking for threats and opportunities, and lions are chasing us. Activations can reset your breathing pattern. And when you can downregulate your breathing and breathe into your belly, use your diaphragm to breathe. It's called parasympathetic breathing. It chills out your vagus nerve. It settles your blood pressure down. It brings peace to the machine of this human body. Yeah. And when there's peace, there's power.
Oh, definitely.
There's power, there's creativity, and there's connection, and there's this beautiful process of seeing the expanse. So, breathing is huge. And then the only way we can run is by flexing and extending our hips. And we test and see if the primary hip flexor is working or not working. And if it's not working, but somebody walked in that means they've got a cheat pattern or a compensation pattern that we need to turn on their main hip flexor, disrupt the cheat pattern, and then their body flows into this great homeostatic, powerful place.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And I think you'll be able to help so many people with that. And obviously the strength. And what's kind of interesting is all of that brings us full circle, which goes back to the reflection, right? In the slowing down, in helping those, in making those adjustments. I bet not only through the breathing, but I bet people are also having additional reflection and just really where do they want to go next and things of that nature. So Pete, thank you so much for joining me. And again, I hope that our guests do reach out. You'll definitely be able to help them not only in strength, physicality, but also with the other facets of life. So thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting again soon.
You bet. Thank you.